So, same story as last time. I was working on a bunch of stuff that I, again, was really trying not to get more of. I did an entire Norton engine for a guy. He had bought it at an auction, and it was supposed to be restored, and it wasn't even close. It needed exhaust ports welded back in. It needed a bunch of fin repair. It needed crank grind, case repair. I mean, it was awful. So I was going really hard on that, and I couldn't have anything distracting me like trying to record. I have another Norton here that we are going to take apart together at some point, and then I have 1, 2, 3, I think 4 cranks to do. 2 of them are going to be balanced. Actually, all 3, I think, of these need balanced. Anyway, let me turn you around. I've got this one here that was sent in. I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember what the story is, but the cylinders need bored. He's got these new Wiseco, or these maps. He's got new maps for it. So we got some real pretty, really pretty pistons to put in there. And then the crank needs looked at. This small end saw some heat, so not a huge fan of that, and they just feel really loose. We'll see what's going on there, but I'm going to get this pulled apart and inspected. It's a really nice crank, so hopefully it doesn't need a ton, but we're going to do this one, and then we are going to grind and balance this one, and then I've got another one up in the blaster because it was in really bad shape, and so I want to get going on those. Like I said, I did some Norton last week, but I just didn't want to show it. This one over here is going to be a very interesting job. Super nice guy. He's owned this bike for a very long time. Clearly he's put a lot of work into it, but what happened was he had it had sat for years, and so he had it gone through just as a precaution, which is awesome, but the wrong guy went through it, and I don't know if he ran it or what exactly happened, but he pulled his sump out, and there was what I could only describe as one of the nuts from the studs. It looks very long, it's a very narrow, thin section, but it's definitely a threaded chunk of steel, which tells me it has to be one of these bolts. I don't even know where to start. That just doesn't... I am nervous. I'm hoping it's not a big deal. The only real thing I've seen so far that is making me really scared or worried is, I don't know if you can see that, but there is a crack running this way and then a little bit down this way here. I don't know if I can get it to show just because of the polished surface, but yeah, that's not super encouraging because I don't think he knew that was there, and I just happened to notice it when I was moving it around. So obviously that's right where the cam runs, so if something got wedged between the cam lobe and the case, it definitely would push out right there. Yeah, so like I said, I want to take this one apart together, just because we're going to find everything that was not done appropriately, which is not my favorite thing to do, and it seems like that's all I'm doing anymore. But it is kind of nice to show you guys, hey, this is not right, and this is a different way of doing it. But either way, I love Norton, so I'm kind of excited to get into this stuff. I need to get it out and get done with it. Also, I don't think I'll have any of these left by the time I upload this. I did post on Instagram, but I did a small run of these shirts. Jack from Moto 76 drew it up for me as a sticker quite a few years ago, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to do a little limited run of these shirts because people really liked the sticker. But yeah, I'll be better in the future about trying to kind of cross-promote everything at once, so then that way, no matter where you're seeing it, you'll get a chance to grab one. But I'm just gonna do one run of everything, and you know, it'll retire the design after I run out. And I did a pretty small amount of these just because I didn't know how this was gonna go. I'm not trying to get rich off of t-shirts. I just think it's fun to have stuff out there. I'm going to show you the front. Little pocket on the front. I love pocket shirts, but I do them in white because obviously this is like some of my, I have shirts made for myself all the time, but I like to clearly get my shirts nice and dirty, and that's why I do white shirts for everybody else, is I'm trying to get everyone to get their shirts dirty and, you know, do work in them. Something that always bothers me that, I don't know, I'm not 100% a, you know, 20-year veteran with experience to be able to really say what is good and not, but I always hear people like, oh, there's no up and down. Everybody always grabs the rod and tries to get this up and down play. If you have up and down play, as far as like, I'm just going to speak to what I know on these engines, BSA, Triumphs, Nortons, whatever. Up and down means you're already screwed. I mean, it's going to be unsavable, whether it's the rod or I assume the journal's probably not the thing that's going to be completely failed. But if you have enough where you can go up and down with it, you know, you got bigger issues. What I always tell people is, if you can, like, now I'm going to try and show it, but if you can twist a rocket back and forth, and if you look, it's not, the rod can slide back and forth. That's normal. You know, this movement, this lateral movement is fine. But if I grab the beam and I like rotate it and I can actually move it, and you can see how now I've got the opposite corners touching. That's the part that is critical. That's what you're looking for, and that's what's going to actually show you, you know, you've got too much clearance there. And so when I'm doing this, we know that the two halves of the shell on that journal aren't square. You know, they're being able to touch corner to corner, and that's not good. That's bad. That's a lot of excessive clearance. So, like I said, that up and down idea, if you're there, you're already, you know, pretty far gone with whether it's your rod or your journal. This side's not so bad, which is kind of ironic because usually it's always the drive side that's the issue because it's the furthest from the pressure. But this one's not really, I can almost not get any lateral or any twisting out of it. You know, obviously it's got the back and forth float, but yeah, I almost can't get anything out of that one. And then this one, it's just boom, 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 boom. So I'm going to mark these and remove them, and we're going to do some measuring. Okay, so the first thing I'm not super stoked on was whoever installed the shells put both of these rods don't have the oiler hole, but there's two tops, two lowers, or two beams, two caps, however you want to say it. But whoever installed it put both of these on one rod, which I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's a big deal, but I wouldn't have done it that way. Our loose rod, the one we were knocking, looks pretty roached. This thing obviously had something go through it. There's a horrible groove right down the center there, and so yeah, it was not so good. Let me wipe it off. Ugh. Yeah. So that got pretty abused there. Not looking great. I don't think these had a lot of miles on them, so not really a good situation. It is at 10. Yeah, see, they even stamped that as a lower. That's funny. So it is at 10 already. I haven't measured the journals yet. I just wanted to look at these first, but this one's not as bad. But again, I don't like that they put both uppers in the same rod. And then you can see, I don't want to move it yet, but that hole did collect some junk. You know, some nasty, sticky, bronzy paste or whatever it is. But yeah, so I will bolt the rods back together and torque them and check the big ends. I'm assuming they're going to be just fine. It takes a lot to stretch these the steel rods. They do last quite a while, so yeah, just that's not good. Let's measure the journals now. I wrote standard here, which we know it's not. We know it's 10, which is 1.7405, give or take a half thousandth. So we're gonna see how close, or how far out, I guess, would be more important. This side, no, actually this side I flipped around. Timing side that was worse off, it's textured really bad. You can really catch your nail on it. Ooh. Alright, we've already got some low spots. Jesus. Okay, I'll just take that one there. So, what the hell? Holy shit. No wonder that moves so much. He does have some marking on here. I can't quite read it. I'm just gonna write it here on the face. 1 point. Oh wait, no 7. 33. Woo! Dude, how did he do that? So this one is worn 7 thousandths. So that tells me I'm not even going to be able to get this at 20. We're going to have to go to 30 on that. Jeez. Let's see what this one is. From the marking here, it looks like it's actually, what he's written, it looks like it's okay. So this one, actually, the drive side is still in that 10 thousandths range. Like, in theory, you could have ran that. Yeah, it needs a polishing. It's got a pretty decent amount of scoring there. I can feel it. But this side, I don't know what happened here, but it lost a ton of material. We're going to need to pull the Super Blend bearing races off and then, yeah, get it split, and we'll find out what's going on in the inside. But yeah, this thing needs a full deal. So, and I'm wondering, I know that in the book it kind of talks about how the studs were only used because it was cheaper to manufacture than the bolts, but the bolts are more hot rod desired. So I'm going to call and make sure he's cool that I put the bolts back in instead of these studs, because we're not reusing any of that hardware, obviously. You know, one-time use. But I'm going to get after this and get it ripped apart. Also, I know I'm going to get asked about this. To get these races off, you have to kind of use a special tool. I've got quite a few different shapes of these. This one's actually the Norton tool. It is 06 3970. This one works really well, but the problem is that lip isn't quite thin enough to really get underneath and behind those races. If you do grind these to be thin enough, then they're too weak to actually get a good pull on it. So what I do is I have all these other junk ones laying around, and I grind them really thin, and I treat it like a wedge and just kind of snug it up underneath to just kind of get that lifted off nice and evenly. And so now that I've got a decent gap behind here, I will take this one back off and switch out for the actual Norton tool. It works pretty well. They can be tricky. You know, these fight me a lot, which is a good thing. You want that race to be tight, but you also don't want to damage anything trying to get the old one off. Sometimes what I will do is I'll get pressure on these when I know it's really good and solid pressure, and then I will just kind of really quick hit the race with some heat. Hot and fast, because I don't want to get any into the crank. I only want this to get hot and expand and kind of let go. So that's kind of the trick I use. It usually works. I've done enough of these that, you know, sometimes you get lucky. This one's actually coming off very easily. I may have even been able to get away with just using this tool straight away, but sometimes these are just really stuck on there. But yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. Pretty good amount of junk done in there. Pretty good amount piled up there too. I can't really say that this would be a cause for our issue. It's kind of normal, and unfortunately this is normal. It's pretty thick. I think it was probably living in here quite well, as far as just being slung around the outer surface or whatever to stay out of the oil. But yeah, it's hard to say. You never like finding this. I mean, obviously anything inside of your crank is a little bit concerning, but again, it's pretty typical normal. So I'm gonna get this cleaned up, and then we're gonna get our two halves bolted together, and then we'll get it into the crank grinder. God, I don't remember what the last video I did with this. I did a crank for our other Norton I did the other week, and so this is already set up and ready to go, as far as like stroke and everything, and the wheel is dressed appropriately for Norton. So I will get this done. You don't need to watch it, it's not that entertaining. I'm just gonna get it cleaned up. Oh, I did mark the timing and drive sides, that way it goes back together the way it came apart. But yeah, so I need to get a hold of them and find out if they want to go back with studs and nuts, or if they want to go with bolts and nuts, and then that way I can make sure I've got everything I need to get this back together. And then again, we still have to do those. I need to find out if he wants those blasted. They're okay, but they're not perfect by any means. There's a pretty good amount of grime on them, but find out if he wants them blasted, get that done, get these bored so I can kind of start honing them. This is one of the jobs I've been trying to avoid talking about because I don't want any more Gold Star stuff, but I did have to drop a new sleeve in this. Some of you might have saw that on my Instagram, but dropped a new sleeve in it, bored it, and I've been playing with the valve seats. Gold Stars are just not that much fun, so I don't want any more. Don't ask me to work on your Gold Star stuff, please. Okay, so I just got off the phone with the guy who sent me the stuff. He's not the owner of the bike. He's helping a friend of his, and all of it was done by a older gentleman, and from what we know, it was all kind of more like farmed out. Each individual kind of job and piece, and it kind of got assembled. So there's really no, you know, finger to point, I guess, on anything specifically. So we'll be careful what we say, and I don't want to say anything, you know, hateful. We're not trying to be mean here, but the mileage on the so-called rebuild, not enough for this amount of paste. This is very thick. It is not just like a normal amount of like break-in material. You know, whatever this weird sludgy black material, I don't know where this came from. You know, there shouldn't be that much, and it's very tacky and thick. It's just not the typical kind of material you see, junk, trash, whatever. So I'm not quite sure what that is. Definitely should not be that much in a engine with this many miles on it, so not good. We are going to go ahead and go with the bolt and nut combo, and new ARP, the new bolts for the map rods, and we'll use these old ones to torque for our big end to make sure they're still in spec. So we'll do that and go ahead and grind this to 30. It is at 10, but the one side being already 7 thousandths worn, I just have to go ahead and know. I mean, we're going to be taking it to 30. It's guaranteed. So yeah, no real conclusion as to what's going on here, why, what happened, but doesn't matter. We're going to correct it all. He's on board with. He's very adamant everything gets done correctly, so that's awesome. That's what we want. But yeah, it's just I just wanted to update on what the speculation was now that I kind of got a chance to talk to him again about it. But yeah, not good. Also, now that I've got this separated and the flywheel is out of the way, I can show you. This is where the real damage was visible. Hopefully you can kind of get an idea of the texture and the lip on that. But that's where all the damage really was, is on that underside there of that timing side journal. You know, the top obviously doesn't look great, and we talked about that, but this is where you could really see the damage. Not good at all. Very, very sad. And again, this is why we're gonna have to go to 30. And honestly, the more I'm looking at this, I don't know, it'll be interesting. 30 may not even get us, but I'm definitely gonna zero it in off of over by the radius where the shell wasn't touching, so that way I'm not setting it up based on a very, very out around shape. I'm only showing you this because you guys promised you wouldn't send me more Gold Star stuff. But this top end is done. Cylinder's done. New liner, bored and honed. Head's done up. I actually had Kyle help me on this one from CBS. He cut a valve for me. He had just done a set, and so he had all the nice fancy tooling to do so. So I had him knock out a intake valve for me, and then that's just a G&S exhaust there. But I had to put this tab back on. I guess the owner told me that the thing to do back in the day was to cut this off, and it like released horsepower. I don't know. Anyway, I had to weld a new chunk on here, and I just kind of left it rough for him so he can cut it to length and drill the hole to match his setup. I didn't have a good enough reference to do that and not risk putting any stress on it that didn't need to be there. So I was afraid that if I did it, you know, crooked or something, it would cause more problems than it's worth. But anyway, got that big old deal hanging off the back now. Yeah, don't send me Gold Star stuff. I don't want to do it. There's other people that are better at it than I am, have all this stuff to do it, and actually want to do it. But anyway, that kind of distracted me this morning because I did get that valve back from Kyle, so I wanted to get it done. Now we can finally actually grind that crankshaft. Okay, so the radius actually turned out pretty good, just on that first initial cleanup. So I at least have a round surface for the steady rest to ride on. But now we need to come over here to the right side and start digging into it. Then we can get the grinder gauge on it. But it did clean up all the way around without a ton of material removed. I still think we're going to be at least at 30 thousandths, but I'm fairly happy. Again, I've talked about this in other videos. I did start on the poorer side, so then that way we know where we're at. I mean, obviously it's just common sense. You wouldn't want to grind this in hopes that this turns out. Let's just start here. But if you've watched other videos, you know that I always start on the left and work my way over, but this is worth checking first. Okay, so we got our right side cleaned up, and I just measured it, and we just so happen to be 3 thousandths away from 30 thousandths under, so, or, you know, 30 thousandths, anyway, so that being said, what we need to do now is, normally I would leave like the 2 thousandths for our traverse grind or phase grind, whatever. 3 is fine. So what I'm going to do is actually jump over here and go ahead and just grind to 0 and do the traverse. I will probably set up the grinder gauge off this side though, just because that's what we just got done with. So I'm going to do a couple more measurements, double check myself, set the grinder gauge up, and then we know we will be good to go. I think last one I did was 10 thousandths on that other one, so we will need to get this all adjusted out and set up for 30. You're probably not going to be able to see it on the scale here, but I landed exactly where I wanted, which is 720 and half thousandths. So, yeah, I'm super happy with that. Now we just have to jump over here and do the drive side journal. Once that's done, we will just put that chamfer back in the oiler holes and polish it, and then we'll split it again for reassembly. Obviously new hardware when we get that flywheel back in there. Then we will put the new rod bolts in after I check the big ends and send this thing back out. I still need to get going on the cylinders, but that shouldn't really take long. I don't have to paint them, so that means I just get to clean them up, throw them on the boring bar, and move on. Alright, we got our little oil holes chamfered, and we have a nice polish on this. I'm going to let this cool off so I can measure it one last time and make sure they match. The only other really big thing is just reassembly with new hardware and torquing. I'm going to kind of let this sit for a little bit, and we'll come back to it and just kind of do all that and get the rods on all at once. So we need to also bolt those together, torque them up, and double check to make sure the big end is round. I'm assuming it's going to be, but just anything that's been abused that badly, you want to make sure everything is still nice and true. And then we need to get tearing into these cylinders and get those bored. So pull the studs, pull out the cam followers, and make sure gasket surface is flat, and then we'll get going. Alright, so we've got this one side done, and I wanted to point out, I cut this, now I'm going to forget, I think it's 65 degrees, I can't remember, whatever angle this is here, but it's just a nice lead-in for the rings. But you can see the previous guy just barely left the smallest, slightest little edge. I wouldn't even consider it a lead-in at all, but it just does not look good all the way around. And then I just cut a pretty deep one. I'm gonna see if I can't. If I can't show you good enough here, I'll show it again once I get it into the sun in. But yeah, you wanna have as much help there as you can to get those rings in. But this side's done, so now we're gonna jump over and get this side. I'm hoping at this angle you can kind of see a little bit better. This was clearly very worn out, and all they did was just throw another quick hone in it and run it. I see that a lot. It's never the answer. I don't know anybody that's ever got that to work. So if it's worn, it's worn. There's nothing you can do about it. A new set of pistons and rings isn't going to save you. But yeah, you can see how bad it scored there in the middle, and there's like a weird little wear spot right there. But I also went ahead and got these torqued up and checked them on the hone gauge here, or I'm sorry, the big end gauge. But you can see, hopefully, we're right at a half thousandths over my zero, which the zero mark is the tight side of the tolerance. So we're in spec here, totally okay, totally usable. So both of them measured the exact same. You can see there, hopefully you can see. But yeah, so those are good to go. I'll double check to make sure those new wrist pins fit nicely in the small end, but there's not much I can do if they don't. But I just have to double check them. Alright, so we're going slow and steady on this cylinder. Norton cylinders are extremely heavy if you've never held a set before. But one thing you don't want to do is let the weight hang on the stones. It will cause it to be egg-shaped. So you have to hold the weight of the cylinder and a nice stroking motion at the same time. So it's tricky, it's heavy, but you also don't want to get a bunch of friction built up into these and get an inaccurate reading and like not a straight bore good get a pretty gnarly taper with a lot of heat. So I jump on and off of these. It's incredibly wasteful for gloves, but it's worth it. I'm doing 4 on these. Normally I do like 4.5 on like an MGO set or something, or Hep Whites. These are MAPs. The range is like 3 to 6 or something like that. So I'm going to kind of fall in that middle and just go 4 with the guy. I talked to him and he said that's what he'd like. So 4,000s on those. We're getting pretty close, but anyway, I'm jumping back and forth. I'm also prepping this. Sorry, I got videos playing in the background, but I am going to get this back together. I've got the hardware kit here, so I'm going to get it cleaned, get the oil off of it, get it laid out nice. I'm pretty well got all this cleaned up. I'm happy with it, but we are going to Loctite and torque these. So I probably won't film it just because I don't want to risk goofing off with time. So maybe I'll show it when it's like all kind of set up. But yeah, gotta get the tabs on there, gotta get the nuts on. You know the drill. So I'll get that all bolted up, torqued up, and then once that's done, we'll get the rods on, and then cylinders should be done by then. So I should be wrapping this up today. It is Friday, I think. Let me check. Yeah, it is Friday today, and so I don't know what else I'll get into this video. Maybe we'll goof off with my bike. I haven't really spent much time on this. I had a lot of other things going on, so I've kind of neglected it, but I want to get back onto it, and we have a lot of things to figure out. Oil tank, engine mounting, I'm redoing that. I hated what I did before after I spent enough time away from it. We have to decide how we're doing the sissy bar, fender, seat, everything. Chris actually has the waxes at the foundry for this tank, so it's getting really like scary close, which means I need to get after this. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe we'll end this video with it, or I'll do a whole separate one, but just a really quick update on what is all happening here. But I want to get this thing on the ground. Okay, so this is all assembled. These are torqued to 30 foot-pounds with red Loctite, and then the little tabs are bent over. Very happy with it. The only thing you kind of have to look for these is when you're putting the 2 halves on, if that little dowel pin, the locator pin down here, fights you, it'll kind of push out, and you really don't want that to be hanging out either side. You want it to, both of these tabs to lay nice and flat once everything's tightened down. Yeah, so I'm happy with this. It turned out great. I am now ready to go ahead and do the rods. I stole a set of the bolts out of another set of map rods I had. So I'll just have to reorder these, and then that way I can replace them. I also double checked. All of these are the same. I thought they were, but I didn't want to say it. But I believe, from what I can tell, across the board, all these little info sheets for the map rods, for the 4340 steel rods, they're always the same. So that being said, 5,000 stretch on these bolts is what we're going to look for. So I am going to use the stretch method. I will set all that up. You guys have seen me do it so many different times, but maybe I'll just do a little montage of it. But I need to get these shells cleaned, get them in the big ends. I did check to make sure our small ones were still good, because we did have a little discoloration on that one over there. But everything feels great. The wrist pins are nice and magnetic dragged through there. They have a great feel, so pretty happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and get these on. The one thing about map rods I like, but you do have to be careful, is these locator dowels in the hollow dowel. It creates a very intensely snug and true fit, which means you have to make sure you're on your A game when you put them together. If not, it will cause issues. Like, it will get cocked sideways, and you can't force it. So do be careful when doing that. Also, we've talked about that before too. The instructions do talk about if you don't have a stretch gauge, It is the preferred method, but if you do not have it, you can do the torquing sequence, which is like you torque it to 28 foot-pounds like 5 times, like tight, loose, so on, and then finish it at 30 foot-pounds. I'm not a big fan of that. I do prefer the stretch, and then we will soak these things, and I've got plenty of ARP, as I've shown in the past. We've got lots of packets to choose from, so we can, you know, use a healthy amount on those bolts. Okay, you want to make sure you give it the full TMNT treatment. It needs to be oozing out of every angle, and then that way you know you got enough. Quite a bit of assembly lube, ARP assembly lube at the base of these. You know, a lot on the threads like I showed, and then plenty of assembly lube. You know, I don't know when this guy's going to start it. I don't know how long it's going to take for pressurized oil to get in here to these rods, so I want them to survive. So yeah, I'm very pleased with how this came out compared to when it came in. I'm trying to balance these so I can hold them for you, but just the generic rod drop we always like to do. You know, no play. Obviously, again, you have that side to side inflow. It's going to be there, but as far as any type of you know, rotational or any knocking at all, I mean, it's 100% gone. This is glossy. I love it. So this is more a show of how sticky my assembly lube is, but it's also proving it's nice and round and it has a good consistent clearance. So just kind of a fun visual, I guess. But yeah, I'm done with that. It just needs to be packaged up properly, and then we will finish up the cylinder, and then this guy is taken care of. I have a couple other just cranks that need to be done, a couple other just cylinders, but we do have that polished engine that needs to be ripped down, and that will be quite the job, so we'll do that together. Alright, well, I wanted to kind of do a little outro, I guess, for this video. That Norton assembly was mailed out, and I'm kind of going to jump onto something else, but next week's video is going to be, I'm actually going to go out to Sacramento and help Keith Retzler put his engine back together. So I did a video on his balance. I ground his crank and did a balance job on it, but we're getting really close to Born Free, and so he kind of thought it'd be cool if I went out and helped him assemble his engine. So kind of a fun little adventure. I'm actually really excited. He seems like a super cool guy. I haven't met him in person yet, but we talk a lot on the phone, and I think it's going to be cool to try and make like a little video out of it. So it'll probably be late because I'll be getting home late, and so it'll be up sometime next week, or no, the following week. But either way, yeah, I'm going to see what I can get done. I'm leaving Thursday night, so I'll see what I can get done next week or this upcoming week before I take off, and then I will kind of vlog that little adventure. But hopefully it'll be fun. So anyway, thanks for watching.